All right, let's talk about Letoya Luckett. I always thought she was, man, she might have been the best one in Destiny's Child initially. I ain't gonna lie to you, but I think it was preordained for, this group to essentially be Beyonce and them. And that's just the way it is. Beyonce's an amazing artist, you know what I mean? But I think that Letoya had a lot to offer in that group.
I really, at some point during that whole process, I learned that I had to get out of the way.
Sounds like you on a journey.
I was, and I'm grateful for this journey. Like when I came out of DC, we were still obviously here in Houston, living with my mom, and I remember hearing this radio interview, and I noticed, okay, I probably won't be able to stay here. I'm gonna have to get out of the city because I feel like this is where it all began. This is where everyone is, and I don't know if emotionally I can handle that, so I'm gonna run. So I ran to Atlanta. Thinking I was gonna escape it. They were still in the front of my popcorn bag. They weren't going nowhere. They were all over the radio. There was no escaping this phenomenon. No way. I don't know what I thought I was thinking. I obviously was not thinking.
Now, if you don't remember Letoya Luckett was part of the original group of Destiny's Child. So the group was founded in 93. The original members are Letoya Luckett, Latavia, Kelly Rowland, and obviously Beyonce. It looks like what happened in 99, I believe, after their second album, she and Latavia left the group. So in 99, it looks like Latavia and Letoya were requesting their own managers, basically because they felt like there was some communication discrepancies between them and Beyonce. No, I mean, excuse me. What's my man's name? Matthew Knowles, Beyonce's dad, the manager. So obviously, Kelly Rowland is like a daughter to Matthew Knowles in a way. So it's almost like Kelly and Beyonce are literally like sisters. But Latavia and Letoya were kind of like, I wouldn't say they were the outsiders, but they weren't quite as family in that sense. And they kind of wanted their own independence and as far as having their own manager outside of Matthew Knowles. And obviously, I don't really blame them because it was, like I said, preordained for for them to push Beyonce to be the main person. She was the Diana Ross of the group. She was the one who was going to be up front. Everybody else was second fiddle. Always was going to be that way. That was the plan from the jump when you first saw Destiny's Child, at least after their second album. I think when Destiny's Child first came out in 98, I want to say their first album was, or late 97, Beyonce wasn't really the head of the group when they first were coming around. There were like four girls. At that time, you had other groups. You had a group like 702. You still had Escape was still around in the late 90s, I want to say. There were a lot of girl groups in the late 90s. So when Destiny's Child came out, it wasn't really Beyonce in them initially. No one even knew who Beyonce was. You knew Destiny's Child. But after a couple of years, after their first two albums, I think that was when Matthew Knowles really started to push Beyonce up front.
And I feel I have purpose. I know I didn't go through certain things for nothing, for no reason. I'm actually glad now looking back. I go, thank God that I went through that situation. It made me stronger. It prepared me for this, So yeah, I feel like there's joy in that. Like people really gotta find joy in life. We hear that all the time. Find your joy, protect your joy. And sometimes you can look and try as hard as you can for the joy, but it's not easy to find sometimes in the midst of the darkness. And I feel like we are living in some dark days, honey. But I feel like I have to.
Yeah.
It's a must. It's how I survive. Is trying to find the joy or the light in the little things. And just in the fact that I'm here. There are a lot of people that didn't wake up this morning.
Yeah. How did you find the light when in between leaving the group and finding your own purpose as a solo artist? Because I know that had to be a tumultuous time, and it had to be a time of uncertainty. Here you are living the dream, the dream that you had, like this is what I've always wanted to do. I mean, you're young, but you know, but it took up a lot of space in your mind, like, hey, in your head, like this is what I want to do, and now you're doing it. And now you're part of something special. This thing is big. It's bigger than that you probably even imagine it might be.
Yeah.
It's big. And then all of a sudden, it's gone.
Now keep in mind, we're talking about Destiny's Child's second album. Bills, 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 Jumpin', Jumpin', Say My Name, all these big records, right? And, you know, anytime you have a group, man, in music, most groups break up typically because of the same dynamic. There's always typically one person that's being pushed up front, right? Or you just have constant disagreements. Maybe one person doesn't show up to shows. We all have seen the all the dynamics of groups like the Temptations, you know what I'm saying? And the group must go on. But in Destiny's Child's case, for instance, I don't think that was the problem. I think they were destined to implode, if you will, because Beyonce was always going to be the front person. And I think that when you look at someone like Letoya, they're 2 albums in. I think that they were probably Letoya and Latavia were probably looking at it and saying, you know what? Okay, we're rolling now. Let's go ahead and get our own manager. But I don't think they wanted to leave the group. I figured that they want to get their own independence and they want to further their business in a smarter way now that they're having some sort of success. But as soon as they started to do that, you know, Matthew Knowles was like, nah, get these girls out of here. Because at the end of the day, the group is really about you all surrounding my daughter. You know what I mean? And I think that that can be devastating for them at the time because they're thinking, okay, we're doing well. We're about to do even bigger things and go on to make, you know, more and more albums together and do all that. So I don't think they wanted to leave her and Latavia, but you know, that was the pivot they had to make at the time.
I went into the studio and started recording songs that I didn't go in there going like, I'm finna be the next, or this is this, or I'm seeking revenge. No, indeed. There was not, there wasn't a spiteful, I'm looking for the words, like, I wasn't trying to malicious, like I wasn't going in there angry. And I think when people come out of hurtful situations or situations that didn't turn out their way, they feel like, oh, I'm going to get back. This is how I'm going to go in there and I'm going to make records, angry records, and I'm going to shut it down and I'm going to tell my side. Never.
You guys were part of the Beyonce machine. You were part of what was cultivating this Beyonce machine that we see today. There was never any intention of you guys ever all rising to long-term stardom together. That wasn't going to happen. Now, Kelly Rowland has done mad things on her own, and I'm not even mad at it at the end of the day. I'm just talking about it because that's the way the music industry goes. It's full of ups, high emotional highs, and full of serious lows. You know what I'm saying? But when you're in a group, the biggest issue is that when the manager is related to one of the group members, it's going to go that way. You know what I'm saying? If the manager's daughter is in the group and the goal is to put that daughter up front. Now if Beyonce was ugly and she couldn't sing, Matthew Knowles probably would have been like, my daughter, I'm just going to keep the group together, because he would have recognized, okay, we got to put Letoya or Kelly or somebody else in front. But the reality is, in the music business, a lot of times when you're trying to succeed, the success of people often hinges on the failure of others. And that's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. And I really think it, when she talks about not wanting to sing anymore, I think it's because of the devastation. When you coming out of a group that big, you're not really leaving on your own admission. You're not really leaving because you wanted to. You're really leaving because you have to. And you're realizing that, this whole mechanism is something way different than what I thought it was. So I think that's what she was going through.